Is that Sue?
Yes, it might
Wanna
be.
roll it, Sam?
It's good to see you, thanks for
I wanna come in here and raise hell tonight.
I just spent less, I skipped out early at my other meeting.
I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the Richfield HRA meeting, and first item on the agenda, on my paper agenda, I might add, is the roll call.
Here.
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 Here. All right. For those of you who might be interested, the City Council is already in the process of going paperless, and the HRA was being trained in earlier this evening. So if you see us futzing around up here, it's because we're just learning the system. Next item on the agenda is a consideration of election of officers for the HRA. We have a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary. I will open nominations for chair.
Madam Chair, may I nominate you again for Chair of the Housing and Redevelopment Authority?
I appreciate that. Are
Do I have a
there
second? Second.
any further nominations? Any further nominations? Hearing no further nominations, I entertain a motion to close the, to close nominations and to have a unanimous ballot.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, I will open the floor for nominations for vice chair.
Madam, I would put together Mary Supple as Vice Chair.
Okay. Are there any further nominations? Further nominations? Hearing no further nominations, I'll entertain a motion to close nominations and move Mary as the vice chair for the HRA.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And then finally, we need a secretary. Is- Would you like that job again?
I would be happy to do
Okay,
that
Madam
job
Chair, may
again.
I please nominate Doris Rubenstein for the Secretary's position?
Okay, any further nominations? Once, twice, 3 times? Hearing no nominations, I'll entertain a motion to close nominations and move a unanimous ballot for Doris Rubenstein.
So moved. Oh.
Thank you, good.
That's moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Close.
Opposed? Motion carries. One of the things I would like this body to do is, it has happened maybe once or twice where the mayor and I were both out of town for a few days, where we overlapped trips. And I would like to entertain a motion, or I'll make a motion, that in the absence of both the chair and Mary Supple, in this case, the vice chair, that that the secretary be allowed to conduct meetings and sign documents.
I would accept that.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Let me check with our, is that okay with our attorney before we proceed?
Madam Chair, that's an amendment to the bylaws, which can be done, and we'll bring it back to you at the next meeting.
Okay,
Great.
all right, we'll do that.
Just
So
so
then
long as,
we'll just
Table?
table that item until the next meeting then?
just so long as we have a quorum, of course.
Yeah, that would be 3.
The other three.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right. And I assume the body's all in concurrence that we will table that item? Okay. Next item is approval of the minutes of the regular HRA meeting of December 16th, 2013.
I move the approval of the minutes.
Is there
I'll
a second?
second it.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. And next item is approval of the agenda. Motion to approve?
I so move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we will turn it over to our executive director to tell us about our consent items.
Thank you, Chair Sandal, members of the HRA. Before I begin the consent calendar, I just want to say, with the new system now, this This is like the first time in about 5 years I've been able to read the consent calendar without wearing glasses, because I can make the screen as big as I need to. It's kind of like the first line of the eye chart kind of thing. Okay, consent calendar contains several separate items which are acted upon by the HRA in one motion. Once the consent calendar has been approved, the individual items and the recommended actions will also have been approved, and no further HRA action on those items is necessary. Tonight we have a few items on the consent calendar. We'll begin with item A, which is consideration of the approval of the resolutions designating the official depositories for the HRA for 2014, including the approval of collateral. Item B is consideration of the approval of designating the Community Development Director as the acting executive director of the HRA in 2014 in the event the executive director is absent from the city. Item C is consideration of the approval of a resolution accepting the 2014 Metro Clean Energy Resource Teams Seed Grant from the Great Plains Institute for Sustainable Development, Incorporated, to develop a Latino outreach plan for the Home Energy Squad Enhanced Program. And finally, item D, consideration of the approval of a professional services agreement with the Neighborhood Development Alliance to develop a Latino outreach plan for the Home Energy Squad Enhancement Program. And that would conclude tonight's consent calendar.
Is there a motion to approve the items on the consent calendar? I will move them. Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion?
Yes, I have some questions.
Okay.
In regard to item C or D about the Latino outreach plan for Home Energy Squad Enhanced Program, I read through the description of this whole thing, and two things hit me. And they may be premature and they may be answerable today, but let's see what it is. It seemed to me, as I was reading through this, that reaching a lot of these people, the Latinos who are whom this program is directed, is a real challenge because of the number of people who are in rental units, both in terms of rental houses and rental apartments. And, in many of those cases, yes, the Richfield residents are Latinos, but the person who is in charge of the energy usage there are the landlords, and they may not necessarily be Latinos. And so where's the crossover in here? How do you determine who you're going to be reaching out to? That was one question. Go ahead.
Madam Chair and Commissioner Rubenstein, the folks that live in rental properties that we would do outreach to are ones that would actually be paying their own utility bills.
Mm-hmm.
And so they would, become aware of the program and be able to work with their property owners if need be. Oftentimes the energy squads, when they come out, they're doing simple things like weather stripping, changing light bulbs, things like that, which are of no consequence to the overall building shell.
And you're going to determine who is paying their own energy by cooperation with NSP, or how is that going to happen?
That would be feedback from the applicant, the person coming to us and saying, I pay my energy bills and I would love to have this service come out.
Okay, all right, that's one thing. And once this is once again maybe premature, but once this program is developed, is this going to be city staff who's going to be implementing it, or is there going to be another consultant brought in short term to implement and carry out the project?
It would be, we would have a contract, and that's item D, a professional services agreement with a company to develop the marketing materials, but they would be essentially administered through staff here.
It would be administered through staff. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions or discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is a public hearing. Mr. Devich.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the HRA. Item 5 is a public hearing regarding resolutions authorizing the sale of 4 lots, 6220 15th Avenue, 6336 15th Avenue, 64 16th and 6420 16th Avenues, to the Twin Cities Habitat for Humanity Incorporated for the development of 4 single-family homes through the New Home Program. And I'm going to ask Karen Barton to make that presentation to the HRA.
Thank you, Chair Sandell and Commissioners. Twin Cities Habitat for Humanity is proposing to purchase 3 properties, which equates to 4 lots. One is a double lot property, from the Housing and Redevelopment Authority, contingent upon award of federal home funds for the construction of 4 new homes to be sold to households with incomes no greater than 60% of the Twin Cities area median income. Twin Cities Habitat for Humanity is proposing to apply for federal home funds to purchase these properties for $25,000 each. The HRA has acquired a number of properties over the last 5 years that have been designated for development of affordable housing. They have been land banked over the last 5 years because of the market being flooded with a number of affordable homes because of the foreclosure crisis. But recently, there's been an upturn in home prices, and the number of available affordable homes on the market has declined. And we have an opportunity to work with Habitat for Humanity to construct 4 new affordable homes on these lots that we've reserved. As I mentioned, Habitat for Humanity is applying for federal home funds to purchase these lots, so the sale would be contingent upon them receiving the award of those home funds. The properties would be sold to households with incomes that do not exceed 60% of the area median income, which is just under $50,000 for a family of 4. We do have a representative from Habitat for Humanity here this evening, Chad Dipman, if you have any questions of him. These properties would be built within the next year, I believe, assuming we get a word of, they get a word of the funds. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
So they're putting their application in February, so I suspect that's why we have the item here tonight. How long does it take before they hear whether they get the funds?
Ask Mr. Dipman to come up and.
Madam Chair, members of the Commission, my name is Chad Dipman, and I am the Project System Supervisor at Habitat for Humanity, which doesn't mean much to you, but I handle land acquisition in the West Metro area.
Okay.
The application for home funding will go into Hennepin County in February, and we would probably receive a staff recommendation in the April-May timeframe.
Okay.
And then receive commission approval in the May-June timeframe. It often takes then a couple of months for staff to get out a contract to us and conduct the environmental review. So we don't anticipate being able to receive final approval to purchase the properties until late summer into the fall. So we have requested the redevelopment contract extend to November, I believe, with the hopes that we could close before then.
Okay.
I have a
Question?
question. What would be the ramifications if we allotted less than 4 lots to your program and project?
As far as the home funding,
No, as far as your interest in doing this, or your
Sure.
ability to do it, or your ability to access the grant that you're looking to
Sure.
obtain.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, we would be interested in purchasing as many properties as possible and would proceed with all approved properties. We would tailor our application to the county to represent the number of properties that we were pursuing. And as far as these properties would get constructed in 2015, so that has kind of production impacts on us for our fiscal 15 and fiscal 16, which cost. And so we're always in a constant state of pursuing properties and filling in the spots we have available in our production schedule, so it would account for that.
Consideration is for 4 properties. If it were 1, it would still be something of interest to you, or if it was 2, or does it have to be 4?
It does not have to be 4, no, sir. If I'm thinking that if it was fewer than 3, we would probably also look in other cities to partner with for the home application, although I'm not sure we'd have time to pull that off. So we might just have to cut back on what we were seeking for home funding.
Okay, Doris?
I've been a longtime volunteer for Habitat. I think you do great work. And there's a couple Habitat homes in my neighborhood of Richfield. They've been wonderful neighbors. I looked at the floor plans for these houses, and I was wondering, could you direct us to any houses that exist in Richfield that have these floor plans? Or is this a new design that you've come upon?
Yes, Madam Chair and members of the commission, the story and a half design, or modified 2-story design, which would be the one that's somewhat taller than the other proposed properties, is a new design for us.
Oh, it is a new design.
Yeah, and that is, so we have not built that yet.
It didn't look familiar to me.
No, it's not. We have had a story and a half design in the past,
Right.
which we built just over here. I'm blanking on
It's
the
up on
address
Nicollet.
right now. And that design became technically infeasible for us to build in Minneapolis, so we modified it and were able to add the dormers on the sides
Yeah.
that give it more space upstairs. And I personally think is a much better house, so
Yeah.
I'm excited about that one.
Yeah.
The yeah, that's the one there. Great, thank you.
Okay. This is going to be, in fact, this is a public hearing, so the commission can certainly ask more questions after other members of the public have had a chance to be heard. And we'll probably get you back.
Okay,
Okay.
Thank you.
thank you.
Was there anyone else who wanted to be heard that's sitting out in the front?
Now it's public hearing.
It is a public hearing. And if you would state your name and address, and then when,
I have a hard time hearing, so
okay, we need to hear your name and address, and then you need to write it down for us in the book when you're done, or on the sheet
my
there.
name is Buster Smith,
Okay. And your address, Mr. Smith?
6231 15th Avenue South.
Okay, and you, go ahead, what would you like to share with us?
Go ahead, speak.
Yes, you wanted to make a,
I'd like to make a statement.
Please.
First
Okay.
of all, I'd like to find out a few things before I make any decisions. Is that, what qualifications do you people all have to be housing and redevelopment? And how long have you been in Richfield trying to develop it? Is there anybody here that's been in here over 15 years? Well, we got a winner finally. Well, I've lived here since 1935, the summer of it. There ain't nobody in this whole room put together that's lived here as long as I have. But what I can't figure out is that I was told by him that these lots were for sale for $45,000 to the public. But they can buy them for $25,000.
that's not.
Now, what are the taxes going to be on the houses that they're going to build? What's the taxes going to be on, and who's going to pay them?
Okay. I'm going to let staff answer that question for you. Did you have any other questions?
I can't hear.
I will let staff answer your question. Did you have any other questions that you wanted to to
Yeah, I
state?
got a whole bunch of them.
Okay, well, we'll give you 3 minutes, so speak quickly.
How many minutes?
3.
No wonder we got problems in Richfield. You don't get a chance to voice yourself.
Go for it.
I'm against this. We've had problems before by habitat houses in our neighborhood. One on 63rd and 15th, another one on 62nd and 14th. People moved in there. Neither one of them ever had any jobs. Somebody was paying their way. I don't know who. I never looked that far. But all of a sudden, they disappeared. I went down to the house a couple of weeks later. I saw some people in there. Apparently, they were from the habitat. The house was destroyed inside. Cupboard doors off. Toilet broken. Holes in the wall. Stained carpeting. They disappeared. Who repaired it? Where'd the money come from? Taxpayers? Somebody had to pay it. If it's a federal grant, it's still taxpayers' money. Money doesn't come from just out of the sky.
Okay. Well,
We need to get Richfield on the move again, like it used to be. They build houses over on 14th Avenue, or on Bloomington Avenue, and 65th, that they can draw all kinds of taxes off of. Beautiful 2-story houses. How much of taxes are they going to give off of one of these habitat houses?
Okay. You have
Not as much.
half a minute.
What?
Half a minute left.
Oh. Well, I guess I wasted time coming over here trying to explain my problem. If you're on a timetable, all I've got to say is that that's the problem in Richfield. Us citizens don't give a chance to talk. I could stand up here for the next half hour and tell you all the wrong things you people are doing. What about the property up on 66 and 17th? It's sitting there vacant across Target. Has anything been done about it? No. That's not development. They chased McDonald's out.
Okay.
They took out 18 houses to build a stupid bike path. And then look at the intersection they put in at 63rd and Bloomington. If that isn't a big joke.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming, Mr. Smith.
Well,
And if
why
you
why don't you do something in Richfield?
would you sign in, please, so we have your information?
I didn't hear you.
Would you sign in your name and address there?
Where?
It should be on the sheet there. Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to be heard? Anyone else?
I have another question.
We can talk after.
Okay.
Can I make a motion to close the public hearing?
Is there a second?
I second it.
Any further any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I'm going to have staff respond just briefly to Mr. Smith if he wants to hear the answers.
Madam Chair, can I ask my question?
Mr. Smith? Mr. Smith? Okay. All right.
Sorry
So,
about that, and thank you for being so considerate and gracious.
all right. We have some further questions?
Yes,
from
I
the-
do. these homes that are over on the east side of Richfield, I'm wondering about the airport noise. Is this an area that's adversely impacted by airport noise?
Yeah, go ahead, Karen.
Yes, it is in the noise impact area, and Habitat is aware of that, and they will have to build to the standards to meet the noise attenuation requirements.
I wanted to make sure of that.
Yes.
I understand that there's some new guidelines regarding noise impact areas from the Noise Oversight Committee of MAC, and I just don't have the map in my head to be able to see what it says about that particular neighborhood, but I was pretty sure that it was, in the impact area. So that's a real major concern for us. There has been so much talk, and for many years now, that people of low economic means have been put in areas where there's all kinds of pollution, and noise pollution is part of that. And I want to make sure that people are not going to be really put in a disadvantage for whatever reason, that their kids can't study because of the noise or whatever at the airport, because they happen to be building in that kind of a area that has high noise pollution.
Other questions from the HRA?
Matt, just
Comments?
Just a comment that I was really pleased with the floor plans and the way they had layouts, and they had egress windows in the basement and further expansion, and so this, and some of the homes that you've done here, I've certainly seen, and they're very nice, and they fit in well in the neighborhoods, the styles and everything. So you're keeping in with the styles in the neighborhood. That's appreciated a lot.
Okay. The other thing that I would comment is we're encouraging front porches, and so it's nice to see
Yes.
those. Yeah. Mr. Stark?
Thank you, Chair Sandel. I know I spoke with Chair Sandel on the phone earlier today, and I believe Commissioner Gepner spoke with Karen Barton. And some of the questions that came out were, why 4 at a time? Why 4 right now? And Ms. Barton addressed some of that in her staff report, in that this land had been land banked for quite some time. One of the ideas was, while the market was at its lowest, to introduce more affordable housing at that time would really not be a good market savvy practice to make. So the thinking was to wait until a lot of the foreclosed homes were off the market. And I believe also that with Habitat for Humanity, there is some economies of scale for them when they're able to do more than one home in a smaller area. And as Mr. Dittman said, it allows them to apply for some funding. I would tell you, I asked staff to go back and look at the single-family home developments we've done here. And just going back to when I came on as the director in 2007, we've done 26 Richfield rediscovered homes and 2 new homes. And the new home, of course, is the affordable lot sale that we're talking
I
about.
can't read that. It's
So
blurry.
we have done
Yeah,
quite a
it's got
few.
that.
You're not getting it on the screen
It's
there?
blurry.
Yeah.
It's blurry. It's very blurry.
Sometimes a second click helps.
Right, there's three clicks. If you're watching it through the television, it would be blurry, but there should be a direct click to the document camera.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, he just increased the size.
Yeah.
There it is.
So this is just showing everything, all the single-family lots we've done. It's blurry on mine too, I'm sorry. But all the single-family lots we've done through 2007 to the current date.
That's fine.
And again, you'll see all these market values. It varies anywhere on these market rate homes from $250,000 to, I believe some of them go nearly $400,000, or actually $422,000 is the highest. The one Habitat home that we've done.
Focus button.
Oh, is it getting worse?
Yeah.
Oh, it's focusing on my pen, I'm sorry. The one Habitat house we've done sold for $207,000 in 2012. And one of the questions that Mr. Smith asked was
Yes.
about taxes. And when it sells for that value of $206,000, I'm not sure how the assessor looks at that sale price. My suspicion is that they know that there's some subsidy that went into making that price happen, and that the actual value of the home may be higher. But the assessor will go out and assess that home just as the same as they would assess any home in Richfield. They'll go in, measure the square footage, look at the quality of the construction, and make an assessment. And the property taxes would be based on that. And they are paid just like they are paid for any other Richfield home. So I just wanted to point out a few things.
Okay. Did you have a question? Okay, I guess I would ask you to come back up because I had a few comments and questions. There we go. One of the things I was looking at is how do you decide, you have 2-story-and-a-half homes and 2 ramblers with basement bedrooms. How do you decide what to build on any particular site?
It is, Madam Chair, members of the commission, a group decision involving myself, our design staff, project manager and family services staff. And we start by taking a look at the adjacent houses on the block to assess the kind of mass and scale of those houses. We have a kind of a portfolio of houses that we have built more than once, and so we're familiar with those designs and have built in some efficiencies into those, and expertise on the part of the site staff. And so from that portfolio, we try to select a house that fits in with the neighborhood. And as far as number of bedrooms and bathrooms, we're serving a large family population of large families, so 5, 6, 7, 10 people sometimes. And so family services department is usually asking for 4-bedroom houses, and then we try to throw in a smattering of 5-bedroom houses too. So that drives the number of bedrooms. At times we are kind of limited to 3 bedrooms. Generally speaking, we are doing 2 bathrooms. I guess in some of our 3-bedroom houses, we might just do 1.5, but in that half bathroom, usually sized to accommodate the addition of a tub at a later date. And so then we always are appreciative of feedback from neighbors and neighborhood groups, HRAs or other governmental bodies on the designs of the houses. So I'm happy to take any comments you have on those.
Okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
When you have a family in a home, do you have any situations like Mr. Smith alluded to where they don't maintain the home well and aren't the resident that Richfield would like?
Yes, Madam Chair, Commissioner Gepner, we, like was mentioned by staff, serve a population that's earning 30 to 50% of area median income, 30 to 60%. We're usually under the 50% range. Those are folks who, for a family of 4, earn about $27,000 up to just under $50,000, and that scales depending on the size of the family. So those are the people that you and I interact with every day. They're taxi drivers, bank tellers, nurses' aides, teachers' aides. All of our families have jobs. Many of them have multiple jobs. But they are low income, and there is stress that comes with that. So not every story is a success, and so we do at times foreclose on families who are unable to make payments. Excuse me. Our foreclosure rate is about 1.2%, and has been that for quite some time, and actually went down during the foreclosure crisis, we believe, as a result of the increased publicity about the havoc that foreclosure can have on your family. So there are cases where it does not work out, and in a foreclosure situation, that's just adding more stress, and sometimes families get overwhelmed. So I do not doubt that that house was in poor condition. The good thing is that Habitat does maintain a purchase option in our mortgage with the family, which allows us the opportunity to buy back the house. If they are seeking to move, if it's not working out, we try to buy it back without having to go to foreclosure. Otherwise, we end up in foreclosure and either acquire the house back or take it back and rehab that house and match it to a new family. So
Okay.
we do have some issues, but by and large, 95% of the time, it's a success.
Good to hear. The other question I was interested in knowing, maybe you can explain for the public who might be watching, a little bit about what the homeowner invests in the property, the new homeowner?
Yes, Madam Chair. So the families apply to our program. They're approved as far as on the financial side, their willingness to partner with us, their ability to pay a mortgage. After they're selected and then subsequently matched to a house, they begin work on their sweat equity, which serves as their down payment on the house. So they put in $300 to $500 of sweat equity on preferably their house. If the timing doesn't work out, it could be elsewhere. They also take 10 homeownership classes. These are 1 or 2 hour classes on money management, home maintenance, being a good neighbor, all those types of things to prepare them for home ownership. It is a first-time homebuyer program.
Mm-hmm.
Once they have completed the sweat equity and their classes and the house is ready, we sell the house to them. They do buy it, fee simple ownership, and it is a purchase money mortgage. Habitat is the lender, and the family gives to us a first mortgage, which is based on their ability to pay and our average construction cost. So for our families, it's about $125,000. It's a 0% interest mortgage and somewhere between 25 and 30-year term. So they're making payments to us every month. And that amount, that monthly mortgage payment is capped at 30% of their income. I should say their housing cost is capped. So principal, tax, if there is a difference between that first mortgage amount and the appraised value, which there would be here in Richfield, Habitat has a second mortgage on the property, which is also 0% interest, and that's deferred for 30 years. So they're not making payments on that, but it is our security against the value of the property that's there. When we have home funding on a project, we often will also have a home mortgage on the property that protects the county or the county's interest in the property, which would just reduce our second. So the families are making payments on their mortgage. They are also required to contribute to a maintenance escrow. This is above and beyond their mortgage payments. And we collect that, and they can draw from that when they have significant repair to make. We, of course, require insurance. That's a lender. And like Mr. Stark said, they do pay their own property tax.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any further questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion on item 5.
Madam Chair, I will move item 5.
I second.
Okay, so we're approving the sale of 4 properties, 6220 15th Avenue, 6336 15th Avenue, 6416, excuse me, 16th Avenue, and 6420 16th Avenue in Richfield to Twin Cities Habitat for Humanity, and we're approving the contract for the development of the single-family homes in each case. Okay, any further discussion?
I have some discussion to make. I think Habitat for Community is a good program, and you know, we have some examples in Richfield of some nice houses that are occupied and happy families, and it's worked out well. And the rub that I have is that we have a limited number of properties left at this time in Richfield, and we only have one left for the Richfield Rediscovered program, and I would like to see the number reduced so that we could offer the opportunity of more people to come and utilize the Richfield Rediscovered program. So on that basis, I would like to see less than 4 properties going to Habitat for Community.
Okay. I had a similar inquiry of Mr. Stark, and my understanding from him was that anything that we build on that property, I believe, would need to be affordable.
Any properties that are financed with the Community Development Block Grant funds are required to be affordable.
So that would we be able to build a Richfield Rediscover on any of those 4 lots?
All but one, I believe, is what I...
Actually, all of these lots were funded through our Housing and Redevelopment Fund. So yes, Richfield Rediscovered could be built on these lots.
Oh, okay, that is different than what I heard earlier, okay.
And may I ask, Madam Chair? My understanding is as though that we are looking at, when we have money approved to be able to purchase some more homes or lots. Is that not the case for Richfield Rediscovered, so that we could do more?
We do have money budgeted in this year, 2014, for the purchase of additional Richfield Rediscovered lot, yes.
So I think we'll fill that.
In addition to the desire to have more Richfield Rediscovered homes built instead of Habitat homes, there is some economics that benefits the community in that these parcels are being sold to the Habitat for Community for less than we get for the Richfield Rediscovered homes. So there's an economic loss to the community as well. And you know, there is a desire to have more move-up housing in Richfield, and if and the typical Habitat for Housing house fits into that category better than the Habitat homes.
Madam Chair, I know, but we do need to have that balance. I believe we've all talked about that, and we put off having this. I guess I think in the way that we're pulling them around the city is much more amicable, and I certainly want people who are taxi drivers and my store clerk to be able to live in my community too, so I'm certainly not against having some more Habitat for Humanity houses. I like the way it mixes into the community better that way, and with the fact that we'll be purchasing more Richfield Rediscovered, I think we usually keep some on. We'll be balancing in. I know you guys are looking at some deals because I've talked to you about some houses that are for sale, so I know there's probably some things coming up pretty quickly to fill those voids. I would certainly still be okay with the 4 homes.
Could you tell us, Karen, how much
Addresses.
funds we have available for purchasing Richfield Rediscovered homes, or lots, or tear downs?
I believe we have funding set aside to purchase 3 Richfield Rediscovered lots in 2014 and 1 new home.
And Karen, can you also tell us how many Richfield Rediscovered homes we approved in this last year?
A lot.
We, the HRA approved 15, and so there is 1 lot that is currently available.
No, but in the last year, did we approve that many?
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a lot.
It's sold, since 2009, I'm sorry, 15 have been sold.
Since
In-
2009.
Yeah.
15.
So the concern on my part is that we're going to run out of parcels, and even if you're going to buy some more, they're not immediately available, and so that's where I'm coming from.
The one comment I would make is we were provided with properties acquired in 2013. The 2 individual lots were purchased some years ago, I believe. That was what the report indicated, I think in 2009 or 8. whereas the double lot was just purchased in 2013, so that hasn't been on
Our books.
our
were-
inventory for very long,
That's correct.
whereas the other ones have been
Yeah,
vacant.
okay. My only problem with selling all four is the two on 16th Avenue are basically across the street from each other. And in that way, you know, if we're trying to get diversity in housing, et cetera, that's a lot on one block.
Well, the other two
actually
are on
ne-
15th too, and the other ones are both on
No,
16th.
well, the other ones are on
They're
two
next to
different
each other.
blocks.
Yeah.
One's on the
Oh, yeah,
62nd,
63 and 62. yeah.
6200, and the other's
The other
on
one's actually next door.
6300.
yeah.
So would this group consider reducing the number?
Well, I checked, and now I'm understanding that we could have Richfield rediscovered on all of them, or some of them, or,
Yes, all four. We thought one of them had CDBG funds, and but they do not. They're all from the Housing and Redevelopment Fund.
okay. I think there is some benefit in not putting all of your lower income housing in one little neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So I would certainly be open to considering that. And my thought was, we have the two lots that I assume have been vacant for quite a while, and we would approve those and maybe leave the double lot open. Or at least one of the double lots.
Mm-hmm.
If you were gonna choose one of the double lots, I would think the 1.5 story would be better than the other one, just because it's bigger.
Let's get the addresses out again. 6220 15th, so that's one block. 63rd towards the end of the same street, but down the next block. And then the two are side by side.
Yes, that's the double lot.
Yeah,
Oh, across, yeah, side by side, right, not even
Yeah.
across the street from each other, yeah.
so. I had one more question, of the Habitat, and that is, if I heard you correctly, you were asking for a development contract that would run through November, but you're not going to start building until the following 2015?
Madam Chair, I may have just misspoken. We were asking for closing to occur on or before the end of November. And then we would construct the houses in the summer of 2015.
Okay, so it is 2015?
Yes,
Okay, yeah,
yes, ma'am.
okay, all right.
You know, there's the benefit of, you know, getting houses on those properties ASAP rather than waiting for 2 years to pass before another opportunity comes for a Richfield rediscovered house to go on that lot, if that even happens.
Mhm.
So this is a dilemma we've been faced with before in terms of acquisition and demolition.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I just might say, obviously the HRA is having a good discussion on this, and I just want to put in here that, there's no right or wrong answer to what you're looking at. It's a judgment call, and it's a policy judgment call. If you're looking at doing something that you feel comfortable with and you think that 60, like the ones on 15th Avenue, the ones that have been vacant for longer, would be ones to go ahead with the Habitat homes and hold off on the double lot for right now. I mean, that's a perfectly rational decision as well. But, we brought all four as an option to the HRA, but it's your call, and it's your judgment, and it's your discretion to make whatever decision you folks feel is the right decision. And Habitat will go forward with two, if that's what it is, as I understand it. Or you'll go forward with four. Or
Yes, sir, that's correct. I believe there's a couple other lots further west, and I would hope that you'd entertain a conversation about us perhaps pursuing.
Well, again, I understand we have a number of housing programs in the community, and you're trying to balance those. And again, it's purely a judgment call for you right now.
Can I ask staff, is just a personal preference on my part, I happen to prefer the story and a half housing, just because that's what I've lived in all my life. And they're both larger in terms of size. Is there a preference, or is there a benefit or a disincentive to have only a part? Is a double lot 100 feet? Is that what it is? To have only 50 feet?
Yes.
Are
each
all
lot
of
would
the
be
other
50.
lots 50 feet as well?
Yes.
All 50.
They're all 50 feet. Okay, so the size doesn't really matter. Is there any benefit in having the double lot available for purchase for the new, for the Richfield, excuse me, for the Richfield Rediscovered thing? Or is it really is just catch as catch can? I mean, is there some view on your part?
No, we don't necessarily set aside, specific lots and specific areas for Richfield Rediscovered versus New Home. We basically had marketed all of these properties when we were marketing the Richfield Rediscovered lots, with the exception of the CDBG funded properties. And, these were ones that didn't get purchased for Richfield Rediscovered that we've set aside then for the New Home program.
And just a follow-up to that, it appears as if I'm doing my math right, we're selling only about 2 to 3 of those lots a year anyway.
Of the New Home or Richfield Rediscovered?
Richfield Rediscovered.
Yes. I
So,
think we sold more last year.
yeah, I know last year, but about, from 9. Well, that wouldn't add up to 13
I think,
or 15,
yeah.
since 9. So we just sold more in the last couple of years? Okay, but before that, we weren't selling them. One year we didn't
Right.
sell any?
Well, and we also, several years back when the market was much stronger, we didn't acquire properties and sell those properties. We gave credits
Yes.
for other people to do that because it was just too expensive.
And Madam Chair, there's kind of a lag, when the economy was strong, it became difficult for the HRA to purchase the houses at a number that made sense. So there wasn't a lot going on then. Once the economy started to, the housing prices started to decline, the HRA and staff became much more aggressive in buying properties. So we were out there buying properties in like 2006, 7, 8. Those really then didn't, by the time all the acquisition stuff happened, all the demolition stuff happened, getting the sites graded, all those things, there's a year or two lag time. So really it started then in 2012 and 13 is when we had the strongest years. Each of those years we sold 6 houses to Richfield Rediscovered. And in 2014, we've already got 6 houses that are either have been sold or we're in contract discussions. So it's been 6 a year for 3 years in a row.
Okay. I guess I am open to doing 2 and reserving 2 for Richfield Rediscovered.
I agree, and the fact of the matter is, a year down the line, if no interest has been taken, there's no reason why we can't restart conversations with Habitat even.
Okay. Am I hearing comments?
I certainly agree with you, but we
Okay.
got the previous motion on the floor, so.
Okay, well, the motion currently says that all 4 lots would be sold to Habitat for Humanity. We can certainly, we haven't voted on it, we can certainly amend that to reflect a different selection. We have,
Hey, the question is, which ones are we going to propose for the amendment? the
my only
amended
comment is
resolution?
that the double lots were just purchased in
Mhm,
2013, so those really haven't been on the market.
mhm.
But I'm,
And the
Not
double lot
hard
is
over.
the 16th Avenue.
yeah.
Right.
The other two have been vacant, and they are in both different blocks.
Right.
Or you could pick one of the double lot and one on 15th.
Can I ask a question of staff? Whatever we decide, Habitat is going to make an application for some kind of grant or funding that they won't know until about November. So in the meantime, that ties up whatever properties we designate?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. Well, if I were to select by style of houses, I would say Habitat can have the two-story. That would be my selection. If I was selecting by how long it's been around, you tell me if that doesn't work. Otherwise, how long the lot's been on the market, the 2013 obviously is recent purchase, so, the double lot.
And maybe you could put them on any lot.
And maybe you can, I don't know.
Madam Chair, we can put any of the houses on any of the lots.
Okay, then,
Okay.
all right. Okay, in which case, then I guess I will amend the motion to reflect, we will only sell 2 to Habitat for Humanity, and that we would reserve the double lot since that's the most recently
Right.
purchased, for Richfield Rediscovered. And I'll throw it out there, I would request that we have the 2-story houses on both lots.
Yeah.
I'll
A story and
second
a
that.
half, yeah. Okay, so that's an amendment that's been seconded. We'll move, or discuss, any further discussion on the amendment? All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
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 Opposed? Amendment carries. Now we're back to the main motion, and it would be for the 2 parcels on 15th Avenue, 6220 15th and 6336 15th, and with a request to Humanity to build the story and a half, the larger houses in each case. That would be my motion. Is there a second? Or that would be my,
That is the motion?
oh, that is the motion.
You're offering the
yes.
motion. I will
Yes.
second that motion.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We thank you for coming, and I know you'll do good work.
Madam Chair,
And-
thank you.
And certainly if the lots don't sell, we'll maybe be talking with you again.
I look forward.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Okay, next item on the agenda is number 6, I believe.
Yes, Chair Sandal, members of the HRA. Item 6 is a consideration of a proposal made by the owner of 6700 Elliott Avenue for a settlement of an HRA deferred loan. And again, I'm going to ask Karen Barton to make the staff report to the HRA.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Marcia Lundeen, the homeowner of 6700 Elliott Avenue, is requesting that the Housing and Redevelopment Authority accept a settlement in the amount of $2,384 on a $15,892.34 HRA deferred loan that she received back in 2008. The deferred loan program provides assistance with home maintenance and repairs to low-income households and is funded with Community Development Block Grant funds. Due to financial and personal reasons, Ms. Lundeen is attempting to sell the property to avoid foreclosure. She has received an offer to purchase her property for $171,000. However, the amount she owes on the property is $266,551.32. The mortgagor has agreed to accept a settlement in the amount of $154,985.28 on the first mortgage, which has a balance of $186,000. Acceptance of the settlement offer by the HRA will enable Ms. Lundeen to avoid foreclosure on the property. The amount she is proposing in settlement would represent 15% of the outstanding amount owed to the HRA. The purchase agreement she has entered into requires that she receive a short sale approval no later than February 8th, which is 6 months from the date of her acceptance of the purchase offer. The HRA has received 5 requests for short sale settlements in the past 2 years and has agreed to settlements in all of those cases. And those ranged from basically complete forgiveness to 87% recoup of the outstanding balance. Ms. Lundin is here this evening if you have questions of her, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have as well.
Okay. Did you wish to speak, or you don't have to? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, well, thank you for coming.
I have a question.
Why don't you come forward then?
Good evening.
Good evening.
And why don't state your names and addresses.
Chris Willett. I'm with Edina Realty. Address 6937 Cornelia Drive, 6900 Dawson Lane, Edina, Minnesota.
And my name is Marcia Lundin, and I'm the homeowner at 6700 Elliott Avenue in Richfield.
Okay, thank you. You had a question?
Chris, is the buyer a family who wants to live in the house, or is it a speculator or investor?
It is an investor. I know that they've purchased other homes in the city of Richfield. They go by IH2, and there's a website on them. I don't represent the buyer. There's another realtor that represents this particular buyer. Basically, from what I've read from their website and from what the other realtor has told me, is they go into, and they've gone into quite a few suburbs and cities. They buy properties and then obviously fix them up, either rent them to people and or sell them. Their purpose with this home, from what they've told me, is to fix it up and then rent the property.
Can you give me some understanding of how you go to a lender and get them to reduce the obligation?
Sure.
For the short sale?
Yeah, I've been a full-time realtor for almost 19 years. I got into short sales about 4 years ago because of the need that quite a few homeowners have with this ever-changing market. So essentially what I kind of have become over doing so many of these short sales is establish relationships with many of the bigger banks as well as the smaller banks, the credit unions. This particular lender in the first position is RBCU, Richfield. So they're a local bank. So primarily what I do is I market the property, full color advertising. We get an offer, we get a purchase agreement accepted on the property. We have the buyer do their home inspection so that we have a solidified buyer. They furnish their earnest money, and then what I do is I present a bunch of financial information that pretty much all the lenders require. Financial information in regards to tax returns, hardship letter, a third-party authorization letter, so I can speak on the borrower's behalf. And then it's really kind of a negotiation. The bank, typically the first lender, not the second or third, the first lender will do what's called a broker price opinion and or an appraisal, where they hire a third party who could be a realtor and or an appraiser. So what they do is they justify their value to basically coincide with what we have on the plate as far as a purchase offer. The bank then either counters the offer or accepts the offer or declines the offer. And so that's kind of the process in a nutshell with each particular homeowner that I've helped, and I've helped close to 400 people avoid foreclosure. What we really try and do is get them out of it, get them out of a bad situation so that they can start a fresh start. That's kind of the process of a short sale.
Thank you.
Okay. How long have you lived in Richfield, Ms. Lundy?
I originally purchased the home with my then partner in 2003.
Oh, 2003.
And had it refinanced. Trying to remember when I bought it and had RBCU. I think it was in 2008. Yeah, 2008. Shortly thereafter, I lost both jobs that I had at the time.
Oh.
And so in order to maintain the home for my kids, I ended up having a lot of roommates to help keep things moving. but now one son has outgrown and has, reached adulthood, and my severely disabled daughter passed away last October 2012.
Sorry.
And so now there's a 4-bedroom house, and me living in it, and I can't afford it, I can't maintain it. And so I'm trying to do this as a favor both to RBCU, which has been very, very good to me, and to my neighborhood. I don't want this house to fall into foreclosure.
Yeah.
I want to try and keep somebody in that house, so that my neighbors don't have to deal with a foreclosed home sitting there.
And I hope you find a nice home still in Richfield.
I'm out of Richfield for now, but I hope to come back. I miss Richfield already. It's
I'm
a good
sorry for
city.
your hardship. We've heard this story before.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you. If you would write your names and addresses there, that would be appreciated.
Thank
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the proposal made by the owner at 6700 Elliott Avenue for a settlement of a $15,892.34 deferred loan in the amount of $2,384,000.
2,000, okay. I'll second. Is there any discussion?
I'd just like to make the comment that, this is another one of those situations where passage of this is the best resolution for everybody.
It is.
Keeps the city from having a foreclosed home. It keeps the city from getting nothing, and it helps out a person who needs the help.
Yeah, and good luck, and thank you for thinking of your neighbors.
We're sorry for your loss. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, any further comments or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Item number 7, Mr. Davich.
Thank you, Chair Sandel, members of the HRA. Item number 7 is consideration of a resolution designating buildings associated with the former city garage facilities and the former Gleason's mortuary as structurally substandard within the Richfield redevelopment project area and authorizing their demolition. And I'm going to have John Stark make the presentation.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. On November 7th of last year, staff provided the HRA with a memorandum, which is attached to your staff report, which discussed establishing a TIF district for the former city garage and Gleason's mortuary sites. The memo explained that the buildings on the sites are hazardous and should be demolished in the interest of public safety. In an effort to identify funding sources for the costs associated with the demolition and environmental remediation, staff has proposed the establishment of a redevelopment TIF district. If such a TIF district were to be established, future tax increment generated by any future development that would be completed within 5 years could be used to reimburse the city and/or the HRA for funds expended for these environmental and demolition costs. In order to qualify as a redevelopment TIF district, the property within the proposed district boundaries must be found to be blighted and structurally substandard under the requirements established by Minnesota state statutes. The architecture firm of LHB Incorporated did conduct an extensive evaluation of the site and issued a report, which we've attached, that concludes that yes, the site and the buildings it contains would meet the requirements necessary to qualify as a redevelopment TIF district. The attached resolution would make findings accepting the results of the LHB report and designating the buildings to be substandard as defined in Minnesota statutes as they pertain to TIF districts. The resolution would also approve the demolition of the structures, and specifically the structures I'm talking about are the former city garage buildings and the former Gleason's mortuary building within this TIF district boundaries. So these could be demolished before the actual TIF district would be established if you were to approve this. The Richfield City Council did adopt a similar resolution by unanimous vote last week on January 14th. The only thing I would add is if you've driven by the buildings, you've maybe seen how bad of shape they are from the outside. You can't appreciate it until you've been inside the buildings. They really are hazardous. It's not an exaggeration. And we have seen evidence that people are in the buildings, whether they're people trying to find shelter or kids, it's hard to say. But we would hate to see something happen in one of these buildings. This is a way for us to to advance the demolition instead of waiting around for development to occur. If this TIF district were established, a developer could come back at a later date and talk to the city or HRA about how any additional TIF funds are used. We're really not ready to talk about that. We don't know if that would be a good idea, a bad idea.
Yeah.
It's just specific to whatever happens in the future. Right now, we're just talking about money for demolition and environmental remediation.
Oh,
We think that will be less than $300,000, and the city would create an interfund loan to loan ourselves the money to do this, to get paid back by TIF later. And I think that's the next item. So with that, I would take any questions you might have.
Madam Chair, I had a question.
Yes.
When I was looking at the map you had here, there is a section between Part 4 and Part 5B. Is that still, that's not part of this? That's a separate family home?
Yes. There is yes, that's an occupied home that's privately owned.
Okay, and then on section, you talked about you inspected the former site of the garage and the former site of the mortuary, but you didn't inspect the home, I think that's on section 3. Is that vacant?
No, that is occupied. And for right now, we're not anticipating that would be in any TIF district. If things changed in the future, then we could go back and look at that. I believe it could be contained in a TIF district, even if it's not substandard, just based on how the language is written for TIF districts. A TIF district requires X% of the structures to be substandard, so we meet that qualification.
So right now, we're only looking at the former garage buildings and the mortuary building?
Is that right?
Okay.
Commissioner Sandal, Chair Sandal and Commissioner Supple, what we're looking at right now is to make the findings of blight for the garage and for the mortuary site specifically. In order to create a redevelopment TIF district, you can have a number of properties in that district. 70% of those properties need to have some sort of structure on them that's more than an outbuilding. And then 50% of the parcels need to be blighted or substandard. If a TIF district is established in the future, it can be a bigger, it can add more parcels. But right now, before the demolition, we need to at least make sure that there are findings with respect to blighted and substandard conditions for the parcels upon which structures will be demolished.
And I would just add that I think I did misspeak. I think in the future, when the TIF district boundaries are established, what has been discussed at the staff level would be to include parcels 3 and 4, but not the privately owned parcel between 4 and 5B.
Just a quick question. How far have we gone on the investigation to knowing the extent of the contamination?
Yep, we've had phase 1 and phase 2 on the mortuary building. I believe we've only had phase 1 on the city properties, but the phase 1 on the city garage properties, my recollection is that they did not indicate a need for a phase 2.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Good.
it's more about, on the buildings themselves, it's more about disposal of the contaminants than it is about identification. So, for example, if there's asbestos-containing materials, that gets abated correctly and sent to the correct landfill.
So there's nothing under in the soils at all?
Not that would need to be addressed as part of the demolition. So much of what soil contamination is relates to what the ultimate use will be. So if the future use were housing, there'd be one standard for the soils.
Correct.
Right. And so we really don't know until the use is identified.
Okay.
Okay, other questions? Go ahead.
John, am I correct? Is if you just go ahead and knock the buildings down without designating them as structurally deficient in establishing this district, then you can't do it later?
Right. And we can't pay ourselves back later. Right.
Which is always good that we pay ourselves back.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay. Just a curiosity question, because I don't recall, which of the, if I look on page 3 of the addendum, the actual report, which of those parcels are currently held by the HRA? I know number 3 is, but I was wondering,
Yes, numbers 2, 3, and 4 are owned by the HRA.
And what was number 1? How did that get separated out?
We don't know. We've looked at that for several years now. We don't know the history on why that is separated out the way it is. We think it probably, at one point in time, was related to a street that got cut in half by the railroad. And a lot of times, you know, you'll look at plat maps and see streets that exist on plat maps, but that don't exist in reality. And that we think that this was probably a segment of a street that was thought to exist at some future time that never came to fruition.
Okay.
I have one other question, if
Yes.
I may.
Mhm.
The, what's the difference between the information that we got in the printed packet and the one that we subsequently got online that I didn't look at very thoroughly?
I believe there was a printing error, and some of the pages weren't complete on the photocopy that was provided the first time. Actually, I think it was just one page.
Yeah, it's
Was
just
cut
one I
off.
saw when I was trying to read and going, what? Okay, cut off. I couldn't find out what I was reading. Just one page.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. I would move that we adopt a resolution designating the buildings associated with the former city garage facilities and the former Gleason's mortuary as structurally substandard within the Richfield redevelopment project area and authorize their demolition.
Second.
Discussion.
I have another question.
Go
So are we actually the one, you should look at the pictures and we determined it's structurally deficient? Is that? Was
No,
that our
I
purview,
think,
or-
Madam Chair and
Yes.
Commissioner Gepner, you don't have the expertise, you know, to look at tiny pictures and determine whether it's structurally substandard. Really what you're doing is accepting that LHB Incorporated
Okay.
has the credentials and the ability to make the report, and that you don't see any reason to disagree with it.
I agree with that.
And having driven by that site numerous
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
LHB's a good company.
And having actually been in the basement of the mortuary. So, okay, any further discussion? Call the question, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Number 8, Mr. Devich.
Yeah, yes, Chair Sandal, members of the HRA. This item follows right upon the one that Mr. Stark just talked about, and this is consideration of an interfund loan to advance certain costs in connection with the proposed tax increment financing district. You've just considered the establishment of a district, looking at the demolition of the garage site and the mortuary, and for the purpose of this district would be to provide a future source of funding for reimbursement of the costs. Initially, we're going to have to find the funds to do it in the first place, so it's recommended that the HRA establish an interfund loan for an amount not to exceed $300,000 to authorize the upfront payment for demolition of other qualified costs. If the site were to be redeveloped within 5 years, then the tax increment generated by such development could be used to reimburse the funds. The City Council adopted a similar resolution by a vote of 5-0 on January 14th. With respect to this, I don't want to go over a lot of the things that have been covered, but the buildings are very hazardous, of course, and the cost of the demolition, environmental remediation, and other TIF qualified expenses would be reimbursed by future tax increment if a district is established. The financial source for the interfund would be the city's capital improvement reserve fund. There are adequate funds in there to make this $300,000 transfer. That could be done. Reimbursement would be made from tax increment generated by the proposed tax increment financing district 2014-1, and the interest rate would be at 4%, which is the maximum rate under Minnesota statute. The resolution was prepared by legal counsel and gone through, so it would be all ready to go up. The HRA would authorize that action.
All right, I'll entertain the motion.
I so move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Comments? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Item number 9, HRA discussions. I know we have one here.
Madam Chair, thank you. I was asked some time ago to sit on a Met Council work group to redo the housing policy. Believe it or not, it's not been redone in about 10 years. And the policy committee that I sit on actually is looking at all housing types, but however, we are looking at something that I think might be near and dear, and so I brought copies. It's called the Fair Housing Equity Assessment. This is a draft copy, and I've already done some commenting on it myself. One, would you pass that over to staff so staff can have one? I can get more copies. You have it? Oh, you have it. Okay, then you don't need it. Mary, that's your copy, and I will pass some down here. I'll bring some to council as well, but it is worth perusing. One of the things that's very interesting is about Richfield, and actually I have the, I'm getting the overheads that we had in our discussion about Richfield, and I would really like to present them probably at a council meeting and maybe bring them back to the HRA, just about the fact of the special district that we fall in that puts us with greater than 50% people of color and below the 185% poverty line and a part of Richfield. What does that mean to us as a city? What does that mean to us as far as for housing and the Fair Housing Act? And again, this is only, it does talk mostly just about affordable housing. There are some gaps in here. It doesn't address seniors of poverty, and it does not address really single-family parent households. And so we talked about adding some of these things into this report. This isn't just a draft, but, and I think you'll find some of the things, that just go look at the graphs, where it will be quite educational. You don't have to certainly read this whole thing. I do, but others don't. So I'm going to get a few more copies for some of our council members, but it's definitely worth the read. And it would be interesting too if you did have comments for me, because I'm in this work group every month, and I'm going to be on part of a sub work group too that looks at how we put the scoring numbers together for cities. I'm going to be on that because I have probably raised the most ruckus about it at the Met Council. So they just, you know, when you do that, they put you on the committee. So I've learned my lesson, but I'll be happy to serve on that and give some input. But if staff have other comments too, it'd be interesting to hear what you have to say. So it gets back through to me too, so I can weigh it, and you may give me some things to ponder as well. So just, that's all I had.
Along that same line, this group initiated a task force to make some recommendations on what the community wanted for housing. And that's somewhat concluded, but the conclusions that I understood are unclear. Can we have some enlightenment sometime in the future as to what that group came up with? And it might have been helpful in this discussion that we had with respect to the Habitat for Humanity houses. And maybe it was clearer than I understood or read. And maybe it's 2 sentences, and you can clarify that for me.
Sure. The Housing Visioning Task Force is the name of the group. They are going to be reconvening. I believe they're having a meeting the first week of February. One of the first things they're going to be addressing, you may recall, staff sent out a memo in November or December, talking about having a senior housing needs analysis done, so that a market analyst could tell us what they think Richfield's senior housing needs are, so we're not always hearing it from developers. So we, before we bring that to you and to the city council to take a look at, we're asking this task force to take a look through that, gather some of their thoughts based on their discussions last summer. So that's the first subject they're going to be tackling. And then I think later in the spring, we're going to ask them to help you define an affordable housing policy when you're using HRA funds on projects.
Okay.
So was there a recommendation of that group that would have guided us on what we did this evening, or?
Well, you know, with staff on that, with that group, we really tried to be hands-off and let it form itself. The outcome was a little less defined than we were hoping for too. You know, it was a vision statement, which a vision statement in and of itself is pretty broad. And so what we'd like to do now is take it on a kind of a subject by subject basis and get it more narrow. So I'm not sure that the vision itself would have been a definitive source for you to say yes or no on 4 Habitat for Humanity lots.
Okay. I had one item to bring up, and that is in discussing and looking at Richfield recently with including some of our visiting, interviewing Richfield residents, looking at what is Richfield's vision for itself. How do we see ourselves? How do we want to market ourselves? And I guess we're looking at in the future, looking at a new 10-year plan, which needs to be redone again. But I guess that's one thing for me that it would be helpful. I mean, Richfield is the best kept secret in the metro area. We have good housing, we have good schools, but how do we get that out there?
Yeah,
How
the
do we-
branding and the marketing, we did hear that.
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah, and so that would be something maybe we could look at in goal setting for the HRA and for the city council.
That'd be a nice, big, broad one.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I did have a follow-up question on that. When we look at if we're looking at policy, I mean, again, as I look at this committee, I said, we're not just looking at affordable housing, we're looking at all housing. So certainly we need something around affordable housing for a policy, but we need a overarching policy for housing.
Yes.
And I wouldn't disagree. I think with the Housing Visioning Task Force, when we talked about the topic of housing in its entirety, that was a little bit hard to wrap
Okay.
their arms around. And
Oh,
so
you know that
the
better than
tack now is, let's take it
Okay.
one topic at a time, and all those topics, when you put them together, will end up being this broader policy.
Okay. Now, when you have somebody in special again like that, will you be taping it again so we can review it, or those who miss it can review it?
Yeah, that would be the plan if we have
Okay.
external
Okay.
people coming in to speak.
And now, I'm not sure, but we have lost some members.
Yeah, there were some members that said, I've served my commitment. So I think originally we had 18 people. I think now we have 8 to 10 that
And I
wanna
believe we've
continue on.
lost a person of color too, who's going to be traveling more.
I don't know,
And-
line by line which members are
I
and
have
are
somebody
not,
else I would like to submit maybe to fill that, who's a very good, solid person who could probably catch up,
Sure.
and a Richfield resident. And okay, if that's okay.
Yeah, if you
with
could
the
forward
commission-
their
if
name to
since
me.
we've dropped a few, and I'd like to have a balance of people,
Mhm.
if I can. And she's actually asked if she could do something for the city, and I said, well, let me check.
Yeah.
So if not, I'll submit her name too.
Okay, any other HRA discussion items? Executive Director's report?
I have nothing to add this evening.
Okay. And then claims and payroll.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, motion carries. And we have no further business, so we stand adjourned.
Here.